Hey guys, I hope you're all doing amazing and welcome back to my channel. And on today's episode of the Crochet Diaries, we're going to be making this half moon crescent bag, and I really hope you enjoy. And here's what it turned out like, and in this video I will show you how I crocheted this. And as always, I really appreciate you guys clicking on this video, and thank you so much for watching. And if you guys enjoy content similar to this, make sure to like and subscribe. And to make this, I actually thrifted some chunky orange yarn, and I combined half of it with some pink yarn and the other half with some white yarn, and then I used a 12mm crochet hook. And I would say I used 400 grams in total. I started by making a slip knot as usual, but this time keeping the loop very loose and wide, and then I inserted my 12mm crochet hook into the loop. I then started the first row of the circle. So to start, chain 2. So to chain, all you do is yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. So 1 and 2. I then did 12 double crochets into the loop of the slip knot, so in that middle circle basically. Bearing in mind the chain 2 does not count as a stitch. And if you don't know how to do a double crochet, all you do is yarn over, insert your hook into the loop of the slip knot, then yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through the remaining 2 loops on your hook. And when I had finished doing the 12 double crochets into the loop of the slip knot, I then pulled the loose end coming from the slip knot just to close the hole in the middle. I then did a slip stitch into the first double crochet stitch. And to do a slip stitch, all you do is insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through the loop that is already on your hook. I then started the second row of the circle. So to do this, I chained 2, and again the chain 2 does not count as a stitch. I then did a increase of 12 stitches for this row. And to do an increase, if you don't already know, is to do 2 double crochets into the same stitch. And because in the previous row we did 12 double crochets, this row we will do 2 double crochets into each stitch of the previous row, so doing 24 double crochets altogether. And when I had finished doing 2 double crochets into every single stitch of the previous row, I then finished the second row by doing a slip stitch into the very first double crochet stitch from the row we had just completed. And to start the third row of the circle, again do a chain 2. And then again doing an increase of 12 stitches. So doing an increase in every second stitch of the previous row. So for the first stitch, doing 2 double crochets into the first stitch of the previous row, and then only doing 1 double crochet into the next stitch of the previous row. And just repeating that for the whole row. So doing a 2 double crochet into the next stitch, and then only doing 1 double crochet into the next stitch after that one. And to finish the row, doing a slip stitch into the first double crochet stitch of the row. And then to start the fourth row, do a chain 2, and then again do an increase of 12 stitches. So for this row, doing an increase into every third stitch. So doing 2 double crochets into the first stitch and then doing only 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then repeat. So doing 2 double crochets into the next stitch and then doing only 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches after that one. And again, to finish the 4th row, doing a slip stitch into the first double crochet stitch of the row, and then exactly the same for the 5th row, doing a chain 2 and then doing an increase of 12 stitches. So this means doing an increase into every 4th stitch for this row. So doing 2 double crochets into the first stitch and then doing only 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches after that. And then just repeating for the whole row. And to finish the 5th row, doing a slip stitch into the first double crochet stitch of the row. And then for the 6th row, doing the exact same, so doing a chain 2 and then an increase of 12 stitches. So doing an increase into every 5th stitch of the row. So doing 2 double crochets into the first stitch of the row and then doing 1 double crochet into the next 4 stitches, and then repeat that process. And to finish the 6th row, doing a slip stitch into the first double crochet stitch of the row. And then for the 7th row, starting with the chain 2 again, and then doing an increase of 12 stitches, so doing an increase into every 6th stitch of the row. So doing 2 double crochets into the first stitch and then doing only 1 double crochet into the next 5 stitches, and then repeat until you've crocheted into every stitch around the circle. And then to finish this row, doing a slip stitch into the first double crochet stitch of the row. And that was the circle finished. So I cut the yarn like so and then pulled the loose end through the loop on my hook. I then made a tight knot with the loose end from the slip knot that we made at the start. I then folded the circle in half to get a half moon shape like so. And I just realized it kind of looked like Pac-Man, but that was kind of the vibe I was going for. I then got the same yarn that I used to make the circle, and then I made a slip knot, and then I inserted my 12mm crochet hook into the loop of the slip knot. I then inserted my hook into the top stitches of both sides of the folded circle, and then I slip stitched the 2 stitches together. And then I continued to slip stitch both sides of the circle together. So just inserting my hook into both stitches of either side of the semicircle, and then just slip stitching the 2 stitches together. And doing this until it was a complete semicircle. And then when I had finished cutting the yarn and then pulling the loose end through the loop on my hook, I then made a duplicate circle in the exact same way, but for this circle I used an orange and pink yarn. So I then did the exact same thing to this circle. So when finishing cutting the yarn and pulling the loose end through the loop on my hook, and then again folding the circle over in half to get the semi-circle shape, and again crocheting the 2 sides of the circle together using a slip stitch. So making a slip knot and inserting my crochet hook into both stitches on either side of the semicircle, and then just slip stitching the stitches together. So essentially just repeating the exact same process but with the pink and orange yarn. And again, when I had finished just cutting the yarn and pulling the loose end through the lip on my hook, and then just tying a knot. I then began making the back strap. So I got the orange and white yarn that I used to make the first circle, and then I made a slip knot as usual. And then I inserted my 12mm crochet hook into the loop of the slip knot and pulling the loose end to tighten the knot. Then I made a chain 4. And then I turned my work and I did a double crochet into every stitch of the chain, starting from the 2nd stitch. So essentially doing 3 double crochets. And when I had done a double crochet into every stitch of the chain, starting from the 2nd chain stitch, I then did a chain 1 and then turned my work. And then I did a double crochet into every single stitch of the previous row, so again doing 3 double crochets for this row. And I just repeated this 73 more times, so I did 75 rows of the 3 double crochets in total, and remembering to chain 1 and turn my work to start a new row. And I know 75 rows of double crochet sounds like a lot, but that ended up being 43.5 inches long. And that's because I needed the strap to be long enough to go around the bag and my shoulder. So essentially you want it to be the length of the red arrow that I've drawn here. And when I had finished the strap, just cutting the yarn and pulling the loose end through the loop on my hook. Now this part is just me being really extra and it's completely unnecessary, so I won't go into too much detail on what I did. So I got some of the 2 colors of yarn that I combined with the orange yarn to make the 2 circles, and I got a 6mm crochet hook and I just did a single crochet chain 1 into every stitch along the sides of the strap, so essentially a border on each side of the strap. So I first started with the pink yarn and I just did a single crochet chain 1 into every stitch along the right hand side of the strap. And then I did the exact same thing with the white yarn to the left hand side of the strap. And obviously cutting the yarn and pulling the loose end through the loop on my hook for both sides. And now this part is necessary. So I then started attaching the strap to both of the semicircles. So I first of all got the white and orange circle that I had made first, and then I got the same yarn that I had used to make it, and I made a slip knot with that yarn and inserted a 6mm crochet hook into the loop of the slip knot. I then began slip stitching the strap to the curved edge of the semicircle stitches, and to do this I inserted my crochet hook into the first 2 stitches that I had slip stitched together in the first semicircle, and then into the first stitch of the strap. And then I yarned over and pulled up a loop through those stitches on my hook, and then I pulled the loop through the loop that was already on my hook. I then repeated this for the next stitch and so on. So I inserted my hook into the next 2 stitches of the curved semicircle and then into the next stitch of the strap, and then slip stitching them together. And basically just repeating this until one side of the strap was attached to the curved side of the semicircle. And when I had finished slip stitching the left hand side of the strap to the curved side of the semicircle, I then just cut the yarn and pulled the loose end through the loop on my hook. I then got the pink and orange semicircle and the yarn that I used to make it, and again began slip stitching the stitches of the curved side of the semicircle to the other side of the strap. So basically just repeating the exact same process as I did with the other side of the strap and the white and orange circle, but this time with the pink and orange semicircle and the other side of the strap. And when I had finished slip stitching the right hand side of the strap to the semicircle, I then cut the yarn and pulled the loose end through the loop on my hook. I then crocheted the 2 ends of the strap together, so making a slip knot with my yarn and inserting a 6mm crochet hook and getting the end of the strap that is not attached to the bag, and then inserting my hook into the first stitch of one end of the strap and the last stitch of the other end of the strap, and then slip stitching them together. And apologies, I accidentally filmed this part off camera, but essentially just doing a normal slip stitch. And doing this for the 3 stitches of the strap, so just slip stitching the ends of the strap together. And when I had finished slip stitching the ends together, I then just cut the yarn and pulled the loose end through the loop on my hook. And that was the bag finished, and thank you so much for watching, and feel free to comment anything you don't understand down below and I'll do my best to get back to you. See you guys next time.